Just follow the money.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of year again. It's election 2018, just around the corner, a multi-million-dollar entertainment extravaganza. Right now, candidates are raising millions of dollars to buy the advertising that will convince you to vote for them. And that's why, more than ever before, we need to see Bill 45, the bill by Senator Joe San Augustine to eliminate the primary elections, passed and in force before this next campaign season gets into full swing. Now, the reason I say that is the primary function of a primary election is to select candidates who are controlled by the parties. In other words, before you can be selected, you have to be a party member in good standing. But the problem with this for me is when you look at the registered voters, the rolls that are maintained by the Guam Election Commission, you'll see that only 9% express a preference. 5% register as Democrat, 4% register as Republican. That means 91% of Guam voters have registered as independent voters. So I personally do not see why 9% of the voters should be given funds to dictate who the 91% can select to vote for. That's why we need to eliminate the primary election, because as things stand right now, the political parties control the primaries, which control the candidates. I'm sure many of you remember this last year when Senator Mike Nicholas refused to sign the party loyalty pledge, and there was talk about decertifying him as a Democratic candidate, which would have cost him the election. Now, wisely, the Democratic leaders decided not to follow through on their threat. But the fact that they could make that threat is another reason why we need to eliminate the primary election. Because primary elections protect incumbents. They set barriers in place that new challengers find it very hard to overcome. The first barrier being raising funds, because many donors prefer to make donations to established candidates than to newcomers. And when you look at fundraising over the past 8 years or 4 election cycles, you'll see that most of the incumbents raise most of their campaign funds during the primary season. Most of the newcomers raise most of their campaign funds after the primary when they've survived the beauty contest. So that has to stop. I believe that with one election, all donors will be forced to listen to the candidates to decide which ones they want to support without the beauty contest of a primary election. The primary election is also a barrier to people wanting to run as independent candidates. If I wanted to run as an independent candidate, according to the law, the first thing I have to do is form my own party. That kind of defeats the purpose of being an independent candidate. Thankfully, Bill 45 is going to eliminate those barriers. In Bill 45, we eliminate incumbent protection because now we don't have the beauty contest of a primary that forces newcomers to raise funds against incumbents. The part that I like most, and especially if you've been watching the news the last couple of months, now candidates for elected office are going to have to provide a district court clearance, a superior court clearance, and a clearance from Rev Tax. And as we look at what's been happening with different elected, appointed officials and contractors, I think this is a good thing. Another thing that I really like is the provision that requires classified and unclassified both to resign to run. In 2016, we saw a number of candidates from Adelup campaigned for the legislature. And while they were campaigning, they were being paid to run for office, in essence. With Bill 45, even those unclassified employees will be required to terminate their employment before they can run for office. Another thing that I'm in favor of is that Bill 45 increases the residency requirement for people running for mayor. Right now, I could move to Tamuning and qualify to run for office as mayor of Tamuning because I have 1 year. Under the Bill 45, there will be a 5-year residency requirement in the village before you can run for mayor. And I think that's a good thing. There's a public hearing on this bill Friday, August 7th at 10:30. I encourage everyone to try to attend. And if you can't attend because of work, then I encourage you to send an email to Senator Joe San Agustin. Here's his email address. Or you can find it on the legislature website. But it's Senator Joe S. San Agustin at gmail.com. Now, if you're not comfortable sending an email with your name on it or testifying because you're worried about how it's going to affect your job, send an email to me, Ken Leon Guerrero at yahoo.com, and I will give a report on how many emails I received supporting Bill 45 and protecting your confidential information. Now, why is Bill 45 so important? Why is eliminating the primary election so important?
Just follow the money.
And we did just that. We took the campaign reports from 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2016 and put all the information together and posted that information on our website, Guam Citizens for Public Accountability, or www.guamc4pa.org, right here. And you can look at this information in an easy-to-use format. Right now, we're showing the status of the Adelup money race. And as candidates start filing their reports, we will make this information available to the public.
Just follow the money.
It's very important for you to know how much these elected officials are raising, because the more money they raise, the more favors they owe. And that can be a dangerous thing as far as taxpayers and voters are concerned. And it's going to be especially dangerous this election because so far we have 5 teams running for Adelup. We already have a couple of new names declared publicly, although they haven't filed their paperwork yet, but they've been out there in the media running for senator. We have an attorney general coming up, so there's going to be millions of dollars raised, all in an effort to convince you to vote for them. What we have done is we've taken the information in these reports and consolidated it. So when you go to our website, you can follow the directions and that will take you to this page, Follow the Money. And when you get to Follow the Money, you will be able to see how the candidates stack up in the current election, but you'll also be able to go back into history and see the kind of money our elected officials were able to raise and get a gauge as to what kind of favors they owed. So it looks like this. Go to our website, check out the information for yourself. Now the question that everyone has to ask at some point in time, when you look at how much money has been raised, do we have the best government money can buy? Well, in the last 4 election cycles, candidates spent almost $8 million just on the primary, on the beauty contest. Democrats spent $2.8 million, Republicans spent $5.2 million, and taxpayers spent $1.5 million, which was the cost to the government to host the primaries. That's a total of $9.5 million And all that was accomplished in those elections is we eliminated a total of 14 candidates for the senator's office. In 4 election cycles and millions of dollars, all we eliminated was 14 candidates. That's not very cost effective for the public. So when we look at what is happening right now, in 2016, candidates raised a total of $3.4 million, but that was not a governor's race, that was just a senator's race. And we saw how crazy that situation got. Well, another reason why we need to eliminate the primary election, lawmakers spend an awful lot of time raising funds. It seems they no sooner get elected than they start holding events raising funds for the next primary election. Cutting the number of elections they need to raise funds for in half will allow them to spend more time focusing on the people's business. And here's a good example of what I'm talking about. I know it's from the US, but the point is relevant.
I would like to talk instead about congressional fundraising, which is much less covered but no less astonishing. In the 2014 election cycle, candidates for the House and Senate raised a combined $1.7 billion. That's a lot of money. That's more than it cost to buy 230 million tubes of hemorrhoidal cooling gel, and it's somehow even more upsetting. Now, interestingly, much of that money has to be raised one way or another by the politicians themselves, which they have complained about for years and say that it can be the worst part of their job.
You know, I hated raising money. Hated it.
It's painful, frankly, to continually ask people for money.
If Don and I could tell you how many hours we spend with our good colleagues on our side of the issues talking about raising money, it would be an embarrassment, because it is an embarrassment.
It's not just embarrassing, it's horrifying. Some say the members can spend anywhere from 25 to 50% of their time on it. But former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle once guessed that in the 2 years before an election, senators can spend 2/3 of their time raising money. And if 2/3 of the work you do is strictly about the money, you're not a legislator, you're Robert De Niro at that point.
When you stop and think about it, in 2016, a non-governor race, candidates raised $3.4 million just for the primary to spend on advertising. With a governor's race coming up, we know that that amount could double or triple, especially when you consider we have 5 candidates running, and how many senators running, we don't know yet. It's very important for voters to know who owes the most favors.
Just follow the money.
That's why Guam Citizens for Public Accountability has been very involved with our elected officials and our appointed officials. We got involved on the pay raise issue. We got involved in Simon Sanchez to prevent that pork barrel contract from going through. We're on top of Guam Y-T-K. We're doing everything we can to see to it that Guam Y-T-K, a company that never built what it was supposed to build, doesn't get $20 million of taxpayer money. We've been fighting the waste energy program for years, trying to prevent another pork barrel project, even worse than Simon Sanchez, from going through. Last year, we fought the approval of a $100 million tax bond to pay refunds. We also fought the $45 million bond to pay Guam Memorial Hospital invoices. We also fought the $175 million tax bond, the GMH bond. And earlier this year, we fought to prevent a $225 million TRAN loan. And currently we're going into battle against another $175 million proposal for GMH. We've testified against the fuel tax increases. We've testified against business privilege tax increases. We've testified for the minimum wage. We go and testify and represent the citizens of Guam, most of whom are too busy doing their daily jobs to be able to take time to go to the legislature, which oddly enough holds 99% of their public hearings during working hours. When we look at the craziness that happened in 2010 when we only had 3 gubernatorial teams, just imagine the amount of money and craziness that's going to happen in 2018 with 5 gubernatorial teams. For the 2018 campaign season, things are going to be crazy with 5 gubernatorial teams and a bunch of senators all seeking to get reelected. Passing Bill 45 eliminates the primary, cuts the fundraising season in half, and gives us citizens a break. But we need your help to make this happen. If you go to our Facebook page, there's a button there on the right there where you can click to donate, and it takes you to our PayPal page. You can also go to our website, guamc4pa.org, and you can click on the donate button there. The money raised through your donations is tax deductible, and those funds will be used to combat the advertising blitz that we know is about to come. They will also be used to support our efforts in testifying against bills that are more in favor of special interests than they are the people of Guam. With your help, we can truly turn the Guam legislature into the people's house it was meant to be. To help spread the word, like and share this page with your family, friends, and coworkers. Follow this page so that you can be up to date on the latest information regarding our elected and appointed officials. Donate. Fund the fight. Help us keep the people of Guam in the forefront of all of our elected officials' minds as they debate various pieces of legislation.